All right, well, welcome everybody. We are going to go ahead and get started this evening. Thank you all for joining us for this Near East Creative Campus public meeting. We have a lot of information to share with you all, and we hope this is informational, and I hope you're excited about this project as we are. So before we go ahead and get started, I know Zoom might be new to some of us, even though we've been virtual now for quite a while. We have all these different platforms. So just wanted to quickly discuss some of the functionality. The hosts will be able to unmute themselves. We do have a chat feature that is open that we encourage you to use. We will have question and answer at the end, but throughout the presentation today, you are more than welcome to use that chat feature that will be at the bottom of your screen. And if you're mobile, you can go ahead and send that chat directly to me, Mara Maher, or go ahead and send it to the group. We'll read those questions out loud at the end and go ahead and get them answered for you. If we have some time, we can go ahead and use the raise hand function and unmute people at the end to ask some questions out loud. I know many people have the same questions, so we'll go ahead and use that chat feature and get as many of those answered as quickly for you at the end of the presentation. So we will go ahead and get started this evening. So just a brief overview of what we'll be discussing. We're going to have a brief introduction of the project team, a little bit of project background information, and how this project aligns with the general work of the Rec and Park Department. We're going to talk about the work that's been completed to date, what the next steps are, and like I said before, we will end with a Q&A to make sure we are able to answer as many questions as possible. So just a brief introduction. My name is Mara Maher, and I am with Rama Consulting. We are one of the firms that will be supporting the City of Columbus's Department of Rec and Park this evening. The other firm is Pizzuti Solutions, who will be represented by Ashley Sen. And then from Columbus Rec and Park, we will have Rachel, who will be presenting information from their side. So like I said, we're all very excited to be working on this project and to be sharing this information with you this evening.
Are we ready?
Are you able to hear me now? Yep, okay. Always something. Okay, 1 second. I will go ahead and get that presentation right back up here. And we will go ahead and get started. Okay, so like I said, I will go ahead and pass it over to Rachel. She is going to talk a little bit more about the project history and again, how this project aligns with Rec and Park and their future plans throughout the city.
All right. Well, once again, thank you, Mara, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I am Rachel Dorothy, a project manager with Recreation and Parks Department leading this design. This campus facility and park is being designed to further Recreation and Parks' mission to connect the community through the power of nature, wellness, and creativity. With the design and implementation of each project, Columbus Recreation and Parks strives to embody our vision of a socially equitable city, emphasizing our values. With this project, we are using input from previous programming that was provided at 2 other Columbus Recreation and Parks buildings that are no longer available for the city to use to offer these programs to seniors and adults throughout the city. Recreation and Parks does look for site locations to be embedded in neighborhoods to serve as a gathering place for all. And our goal for this site is to provide a facility for seniors and adults throughout the entire city to explore creative and wellness programs and have an outdoor park and flexible space within the facility for the neighborhood to enjoy. As mentioned previously, the intended creative campus arts and wellness programming is being guided by providing similar opportunities as those that were housed at 2 previous Recreation and Parks locations. Both of these locations are no longer under Recreation and Parks operation and are not providing services for the community. The Martin Janis Senior Community Center, which was at the Ohio State Fairgrounds, is closed and now has some of their programming temporarily relocated to the Thompson Community Center. Some of the programming Martin Janis previously provided the community included art, craft, wood shop and ceramic rooms, and auditorium, theater, fitness, and dining spaces. The next building, the Golden Hobby Shop, was located in German Village, is also closed to city residents and has temporarily moved their consignment art shop to the Columbus Performing Arts Center. The previous Golden Hobby Shop had provided a consignment shop offering handmade goods from our senior community for sale, including quilts, ceramics, wood crafts, painting, and more. It also offered a variety of art and craft making classes and how to make the goods that were eventually for sale. And passing this off to Ashley.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Ashley Sen with Pizzuti Solutions. The city of Columbus started to think about the future of Martin Janis and Golden Hobby a couple of years ago. So they partnered with Pizzuti to survey the staff and the users of both facilities while they were still open. You can see the key takeaways here. Both Golden Hobby and Martin Janis provide valuable opportunities for seniors to develop and showcase their creative art skills. There is a strong desire to incorporate creative arts production and sales into one dual-purpose facility to encourage cross-utilization of both programs. We received overwhelming feedback that combining these two programs into one facility would encourage more participation. There's a desire for an updated, modern facility that could encourage broader citywide senior participation and possibly the possibility of expanded hours, and a sense of community that makes it fun to stay social and active in a seniors only environment. There is a strong sense of community with both of these programs, and we heard loud and clear that participants generally like the seniors only environment.
As Ashley was emphasizing, with the new Creative Campus, our goal is to provide a holistic campus with a facility that meets the existing community needs for rehousing previous senior and adult arts programming, while also embedding itself in the Old Town East community, providing park space and flexible space in the building for community events. This is a location we have embraced to house these opportunities for the community based on our mission and vision, using the previous Douglas Elementary School site for a building and park that is within the Old Town East neighborhood. And so now back to Ashley to discuss our work to date in creating the design for this new campus.
Thank you, Rachel. So beginning this spring, we've had a citywide effort to raise awareness about this project. And we've been looking for ways that we can serve residents in addition to the Martin Janis and Golden Hobby programs. I discussed the survey of the Martin Janis and Golden Hobby users. We also have a project website that you can see here, which I would encourage all of you to check for updates and to please sign up for the email updates. We've also worked with the city's neighborhood liaisons to help us spread the word citywide. And we've met with over a dozen arts and neighborhood community stakeholders and given presentations to the Near East Area Commission and the Old Town East Association. We're going to continue to give periodic updates throughout the process to these groups via email. And so I really encourage you to sign up for the email updates at cevascreativecampus.com. We also created a community survey that was distributed both online and via hard copies, and I'll let Maura talk more about that next.
Perfect. Yeah, so as Ashley said, this is actually the second survey. So the first survey was specific to those active users at Martin Janis and Golden Hobby, but we also decided to deploy a community-wide survey this spring. And the goal of this was to really just get some community-wide input and understanding people's points of interest and just getting a base idea as we begin to put this project together. So we were lucky enough to have 362 362 total responses. So if anyone here today participated, we thank you, it was very helpful. 72 of those responses were via paper submission, and those were located at various community centers, and 290 of those responses were digital submissions. Those came through the project website Ashley just mentioned. Also, it was pushed out on a couple different social media platforms and also located on the city site at the Rec and Park page. Like Ashley said, that survey was available in Spanish, Somali, and English. As it turned out, 100% of our respondents were in English. And we do have a brief snapshot of some of the zip codes there that we heard from. These were actually the 3 highest zip codes that had participation. As you will notice, those percentages are not particularly high, which meant we actually had a lot of participation from a lot of different zip codes, which is really great. Obviously, the center will be located on the east side and will be serving that community, but ultimately it will be a location where people from all over Columbus can come and enjoy. So we are really fortunate to have a very broad range of input throughout the city. So I'm just going to run through a couple of the survey questions here, just give you a brief taste of what we heard. And again, this is just a jumping off point. We're not married to any of this by any means, but we just wanted to give you an idea of some of the initial feedback we heard from the community. So one of the first questions we asked was to get an idea of what age people were who were responding to the survey and the ages of people who'd be potentially interested in attending programming at this new center. So the first question there at the top, you'll see 77% of respondents were between the ages of 45 and that 75 plus. So that was by far the majority of responses. We did have a fair amount in that 25 to 45 age or 44 age range, but the majority over 45 years old. Down at the bottom, we had 87% of respondents indicating that the members of their households who would be likely to attend the center were between the ages of 45 and that 75 plus again. As you'll see, that was a little bit more spread out, but again, still very much in that 45 and 75 plus is where we were seeing a lot of the traction there. So the next question we posed was getting an idea of what kind of program people were interested in. So we know the Creative Center will have kind of 3 main elements: that creative programming, that wellness programming, and then we have an outdoor space as well. So this question was really specifically around that creative programming. So as you'll see here, when respondents answered this question, they were given the list that you see on your screen, in addition to that other option where they were able to write in anything that was not included, and respondents were able to select up to 3 of these options. So painting and ceramics were fan favorites up there at the top. The other was also very high, and some of the top responses that people wrote in for that other option were the lapidary, the stained glass, and the sewing and quilting. But again, we had a lot of interest across the board: the drawing, the woodworking, the jewelry making, all still having very high levels of interest. And again, this is just to give us an idea of where people are leaning, and just getting an idea of where the interest lies for some of those classes that were available at the previous centers. So the second question, similar to the last one, specifically asking about that wellness related programming. So again, respondents were able to pick up to 3 different options. They were given all of the options you see on the screen there, in addition to that other where they were able to write in anything we had not included. Again, yoga there seemed to be a fan favorite at the top, followed closely by fitness and cardio, and then by Tai Chi, dance, and walking. Other was a little bit lower on this one, but some of the call outs for the other were pickleball, Pilates, and self-defense and martial arts. And going to the third option there. So for this question, like you saw in the picture that Rachel showed earlier, there is a fair amount of green space around the building. And so we want to make sure that we're very purposeful and meaningful in using the entire space and making the entire space usable, and really an amenity to the community. So much like the last 2 questions, we did give a selection of options here where people were able to pick 3. And then again, that other option where people were able to write in anything we might have forgotten or any great idea they had for consideration. So for this one, we did have the paved walking path was kind of number 1 up here, followed closely by public art and a patio space, which would be used to offer some outdoor programming. Again, gazebo and benches, very popular, and picnic tables. And then for the other responses, we heard gardening and meditation would be areas of interest for that outdoor space. So moving to the next question, the other element as we're beginning to imagine this building is the time of day that programming is available. And so we wanted to get an idea when you think about weekend and weekdays. We know people's weekends and weekdays look a lot different. So we wanted to get an idea of where people think they would be most likely to take advantage of the programming offered at the center. So interesting, oh, let me back up one. We actually had a lot of interest in the evening programs for the weekdays between the 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. slot, but also a fair amount of interest between 12 and 4 and 8 and 12. So across the board during the weekend, it seems like there is that interest in programming really from almost sun up to sundown there. And in the weekend, it was a little bit different. So we saw that interest from 12 to 4, and again from 8 to 12, but not as much on the evenings for the weekend. So again, just good context as we begin to think through this, where people initially believe that they could see themselves participating in the programming at the center. So the last question we're going to review today, we asked sort of an open-ended question for the community. So we know anytime we want to add a amenity or building or any addition to a community, we want to think about how that building or center can help meet the needs of the specific community. So what we asked people, it was an open-ended question. They could write in whatever they wanted, and we asked them what community needs they believe the Creative Campus could help meet. So what you're looking at here is a word cloud. So we took all the responses and boiled them down so we could have a quick snapshot here. So the larger words represent what we heard most frequently, and then the smaller words a little less frequently. This is not every response by any means, but it's kind of a snapshot to show you some of the things we heard a lot of. So right there, big in the middle, senior, creative, really that's important that there is that senior specific space or senior specific programming. We want to have that creative element. We want a place to gather. We saw a lot of gathering, a lot of community having that space to come together. We saw that we wanted to make sure it was a safe space that people felt comfortable going. We wanted to make sure there was affordable programming for low income seniors or people on fixed incomes. Again, a space for community. We heard that a space where there could be some health resources available or even health information would be helpful. You'll see multi-generational and youth there. That doesn't necessarily mean that youth specific programming, like we talked about, there's that green space, all of those potential walking paths and things like that that youth could take part of. A little bit smaller here, it's a little hard to see, but we heard about the lunch program and how important that was, hearing about the accessibility of the building, nutrition information, making sure it's inclusive. We heard about dance classes and fitness classes, just general meeting space, parking, financial information, green space, farmers market. So we had a lot of great ideas from here. And so again, just a snapshot, but you can kind of see where the majority of the responses are really prioritizing that senior specific element, that creative element, and that community gathering space. So I'm going to send it back to Ashley here for just a second. She's going to talk a little bit about next steps and what's next for this project.
Thanks, Maura. As you can see, we have our project schedule here. I want to remind everyone that we are at the beginning of this process, so these dates are subject to change. This is the June 23rd public meeting, so thank you all for being here with us on this lovely summer evening. We'll be engaging our architects soon, and design will be getting underway. We'll be back to check in with the community later this year with some updates as things start to take shape. We expect construction to begin towards the end of 2022, and we hope to be cutting the ribbon on the new Creative Campus in the spring or summer of 2024. I know I'm really plugging the website this evening, but I also really just want to encourage you to please visit the website and to sign up for the email updates. That's the best way for you to keep engaged with us and the project, and hopefully you'll be getting some regular communication from us. And now I believe we're gonna open it up for questions.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump out of here really quickly so I can see everybody and make sure I catch all the questions. Okay, so like I said before, feel free. It looks like we have a couple in the chat already. Okay, any questions at this point? I know there's a couple comments in the chat. Any questions? If anyone would like to type them in the chat, feel free, or you can go ahead and raise your hand, and let me see if I can start. Oh,
Well, actually, one other thing that I think we did want to announce that we missed a bit is that we have been doing some assessing of the existing facility and site in regards to ADA accessibility standards, anticipated programming needs, and hazardous materials within the existing facility. And we do anticipate demolishing the current building when developing an overall new campus plan with a new facility and park space. And we do look forward to presenting the design in the future public meetings. I don't know if that will also prompt any other questions too. And Jeff Martin is an integral part of this whole team, and he isn't totally in charge of programming. I am responsible for implementing that design and construction process, but he is in charge of the programming, what will happen in that new facility.
thank you for that added context. Look like Gail had a question. I think you should be able to unmute yourself, Gail.
So my question has to do with, so has the CRPD already decided that this facility is not going to be a designated senior center and is in the process of eliminating all 50+ designations in CRPD facilities?
Well, this site is definitely for adults, and we are emphasizing rehousing many of the senior programs that were at those.
That's not my question. My question has to do with the designation of 50+ senior centers, of which there were 2 dedicated, and maybe, I'm not sure the exact number, how many other 50+ designations, but that's a category within the CRPD vernacular. So is the end game to eliminate the 50+ program, and then it just become an adult center?
Gail?
Uh-huh.
My name is Jim Miller, and I'm the administrator for the design and construction section with Rec and Parks. We haven't made any such decision on designation, and I'll tell you quite honestly, it's not something that we've talked about yet. So if I might ask, let me ask that question. Let me do some digging, and I will get back to you on that. That hasn't been anything that we've considered at this stage.
The only reason why I think it's important, a key question that has to be answered early on, is because if you're designing a building and a functional building for a senior audience, you have to consider level floors, no platforms that step up 3 inches, you know, your bathroom situation. You know, if you're going to have a senior crowd, they need to have spaces for walkers and canes and places to put your canes. If you're going to have, if it's a senior audience, you know, you need to, you know, consider the chairs you put in there. The chairs at the Thompson Rec Center are awful. And if you're a senior, you need a little help getting up. So you might need some arms or, you know, some sturdier chairs so that when you're getting up from your chair, you know, there's all these kinds of little nuances that happen in a more elderly group than in a traditional, you know, youthful rec center that, you know, that to me comes into play if we are truly going to continue with the senior, you know, the 50+ senior center.
Well, we are trying to make sure that every single design that we have for our centers moving forward is universal design for people of all ages and all abilities. Hence, when looking at the existing building on site, it doesn't meet current ADA standards and our programming needs, or universal design, and which I understand you want to design for people of all ages and abilities, with an emphasis on people who have more needs. And so that's what we're trying to do in all of our buildings. So yes, we would design to those standards for seniors, which would help everyone across all ages.
Yeah, and Gail, I like that point that you made. And until we completed the survey, we knew that we were going to have participation from those from Martin Janus and those from Golden Hobby. That survey confirmed that for us. So all of those things that you talk about in the design of the building, and I see that our design professionals from Moody Nolan are here. Absolutely, those are things that are going to be considered and incorporated into the design of this building.
Thank you.
Perfect. So I did see Dennis had a question about the website URL. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that into the chat so everyone can click on it, but it is cbuscreativecampus.com. But again, I went ahead and threw that in the chat. And it looked like Dennis had a second question, specifically around music and theater, and if the city is considering music and theater spaces potentially being worked into the building.
I'll take that design team. So at the very beginning, Mr. Stafford, we did consider it. The theater programming and the space that's needed for it cannot be accommodated on this 4-acre site. There just was not enough parking spaces. There wasn't enough green space for the footprint of the building, et cetera, et cetera. However, the Center of Performing Arts, the theater programming, that is on our agenda too. That is something that the department recognizes is badly needed. We are going to work to address it, though it's not going to be addressed on this project.
Any other questions? Oh, Gail, I think you are unmuted.
Okay, a follow-up to Jim. So when you say not doing a theater, I'm sure there's special requirements for a theater. However, at the Janus Center, we had a auditorium with, I think it was 400-seat auditorium, which we recognize might not be able to accommodate a new place, but at least a large enough auditorium, because we used to have performers come in. We used to have small plays. We used to have dance shows in that environment. So is there going to be any kind of not a gym floor with folding chair type auditorium, but a true stage for potential?
We are working on it. We are working on it. We recognize that deficiency, and right now the Center for Performing Arts, I'm sure that you're aware, that's the temporary home for Golden Hobby. Mm-hmm. And we just had that building assessed for its condition as well, and it needs major renovations. And so this is something that it's in our near plans to address, but we haven't tackled it yet. We're working on it now. So yes, Gail, I hear you. I understand. This is still a question mark that the city is working on answering.
And Dennis, I see you had a follow-up question. I believe you are unmuted.
Thank you. I think you've answered my question. So just so I'm clear, a couple things. So first of all, it seems the center that we're speaking about, it appears as though its primary function or its historic users have been seniors. Like I'm thinking about the word thing you showed and just some of the things you've said. So, and I'm coming to this conversation late, but it seems as though what is being created is being geared toward to fulfill an existing need, or perhaps there had been some prior location and now this is being looked at to perhaps be a new home for that. So that's the first. So just so I can answer my question, does that sort of make sense? Am I sort of clear about what this is, or no?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And so leads. So, and the only reason I asked about the arts part of it is because I work within the music community, and I know that some of our city officials and other business people are starting to think about how Columbus could be the next great music city, a la its own Austin or whatever. I think that's why you've got the Columbus Music Commission, other entities, and other Spotify is now here, et cetera. So I was just curious to see if that broader vision was something that was now being considered as part of some of the city's plans. But again, I think you've answered those questions, so I do appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'll just, I'll share with you that, at the very least, when the project started, the existing programming at Martin Janus and Golden Hobby was the base of consideration for the programming here. But with the survey of the entire community, that's being added to, and it's all being refined. But we definitely wanted to maintain, or perhaps even improve upon, what it is we already had. And again, to the I just want to reemphasize that the theater and the auditorium and that stuff, the Center of Performing Arts is going to reopen when Golden Hobby moves into this space. And I'm looking forward to a day here very, very soon, certainly within, I hope, the next couple of years, that we have a new renovated or a new theater space somewhere, or we've worked with a partner someplace, somewhere, to fill that void.
Thank you.
It looks like we had a question from Judith in the chat, and then I'll go to you next, Beth. The question from Judith was about the size of the rooms, and if there's been any decision about the size of a potential kitchen, ceramics, or glass rooms, or the communal center hall.
Again, we're in the finishing phases of identifying what the programming is going to be. So the size of the rooms and characteristics of the space inside the building. The design team at Moody Nolan has a long history with the city of doing an excellent job at making sure that the space is adequate for the needs. So the next time you see us, we will have a conceptual plan and a floor plan that lays that out for you so you can see for yourselves. But right now, we're not that far along in the plan development.
And Beth, I think you should be able to unmute.
Thank you. My question is, have you chosen the entire design team that's going forward? And if you have, would you consider having a senior citizen on that committee? We know there was not one on the development of the survey, and we felt by the way the questions were asked, you could have used some input from us. So we're wondering, as we move forward, are there going to be any senior citizens, not just from Martin Janus, but from the Golden Hobby Shop also on that committee or that team?
Miss Carnate, if I pronounce your name correctly, there has not, but that doesn't mean there can't be or shouldn't be. So let's, I saw that Carlo Burns sent out a message early in the chat that Gail was going to be a conduit between the design team and the needs of the community folks there. Let's explore that idea a little bit.
I would very much volunteer to be on that team.
Jeff Martin is in charge of programming for this also, and I know he's been working with existing center managers, and we can see who else we can reach out to, but we'll be coordinating that also with Jeff then too, for getting more input and having a senior on putting information in for the design for programming too. We can work with him, but unfortunately he cannot be with us tonight, but he is definitely integral in what programming we design around.
So,
and it's also, I think, important to mention that some of the initial discussions involve seniors and seniors only at that time. So, there hasn't been a vacuum in terms of senior leadership. I think it's important to keep that momentum going forward, and the best way to do so is to get in touch with your center managers. And per Jim's point, if there's an opportunity to have a little more dialogue, by all means, I think the design team and the project management team would look forward to that.
We have a question from William in the chat, and then we're going to go to Carol right after William. William's question was about the projected operating costs for the center and how it would compare to Janus and Thompson costs, and with consideration of a potential theater or whatever that might look like. And I'm not sure if you have an answer to that yet, Jim, but I'll throw it out there.
I do. I love that question because our maintenance team, for example, they're yelling at me all the time because we keep building new facilities, but we don't add maintenance staff to aid in the operational cost, or community recreation staff to help run some of the new programs that we have. So I love the question. Know that part of Moody Nolan's scope and Pizzuto's scope is to work together to do that calculation for us, so that when we open the building, the city, the department, is adequately staffed to deliver the programs that the building was designed for, and that our maintenance section is also staffed to properly operate and maintain the building itself. So I don't have that number today. We're not that far into the design yet to make that determination, but please rest assured that that is a critical piece to the success of this project, and it is going to be part of it as we're moving forward, for sure.
Yeah. And Jim, I'd like to also add that this, just from our historical work in this types of building, I can generally tell you that a larger, more modern design typically yields better results in terms of operational and staffing efficiencies. It's very similar to modern school design. You create some efficiencies by modernizing the program and modernizing the spaces that house those programs.
I mean, absolutely. We're going to look at what it takes, and we're going to compare it to what we have, and we're going to make adjustments to accommodate.
Carol,
Yeah, thank you, Carl.
I believe you are up next, Carol.
Hi, thank you. I just wondered, when you were talking about the amount of space that you have, 4-acre site, I just wondered, first of all, if it's going to be a 2-story building or a 1-story building. And also, have you considered a place for the creative arts program? They always have their big meeting there every year, or they did at Martin Janus. And I just wondered if you're going to have a space for that activity as well.
Another great question. Again, when we consider the floor plan and the arrangement of the space, I'll ask my design team right now, to let's look into that. How many people are we talking about? Is this something that we're going to be able to accommodate here? And is it going to be a 1 or a 2-story building? Carol, that was actually, potentially we could look at 2 stories, and we are. That was one of the issues with the theater space. When you have a theater, the theater and the seats, it's 2 stories tall for one room, and that took up a lot of space. And that's one of the reasons why it's not included on this site. But yes, we are looking at building up as well as building out to accommodate the programming here.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like we had a question in the chat from Ken and somebody on a Galaxy tablet regarding the model train program and if those are intended to be included in the new space.
Model trains, yes. What was the other question?
There are 2 people who asked about model train programs. Yeah,
the model train component is something that we're all very well aware of. and we want to continue.
Looks like we had a comment just regarding ensuring that we're paying equitable salary to long-term key staff and maintenance staff and teachers being vital. So not a question there, but a comment. Oh, someone asked a question regarding the lapidary program and if that would be included in the new space.
Yeah, lapidary was very popular on the survey, Maura, if I'm not
Was.
mistaken, correct?
It was. I
So,
think it was our number one write-in.
yeah, yes, I'm expecting it to be included, yes. And the equitable salaries, don't forget about your design and construction team and your project managers and people like that. And your architects and your engineers and your owners reps, right, guys?
Yeah, please don't. But yeah, we generally, generally it's safe to say that we're duplicating the efforts that you saw both at Martin Janus and Golden Hobby. We're actually hoping to enhance that with some flexible square footage for some yet to be determined programming that might present itself as part of this process.
Absolutely. I think that is all the, oh, wait, I'm sorry, I have
Okay.
one more. Can you speak more about the outdoor green space plans? Is the design team accepting proposals? And then how is that going to be funded?
Can you help me understand what you mean by proposals?
So that is from Sherry Jones. If you would like to unmute and expand upon that, feel free.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Sherry Jones. I actually was going to send out an email. I am sitting in on this meeting. I'm actually from Columbus Public Health, and we were presented with a proposal for a green space park specifically for seniors. So I was really just wondering if the design team is accepting proposals. This is something that we would fund, but I didn't know if the team was accepting any outside help with the green space, if that makes sense.
It's definitely something that we consider. We can consider, Ms. Jones. I mean, we haven't started design of the green space yet. We are reminded often that this project is not just about the building. It's about the outdoor space as well. And so I would say, let's make sure that we get your information by the conclusion of this meeting so that we can talk further about that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Or you can feel free to message that directly to me, that information, or go ahead and send it right to Jim, and we can get you two connected offline there. We had a comment in the chat from Judith, just saying that a small auditorium with seating that isn't a set place for lectures is very important. So another consideration there. Any other comments or questions at this point? I don't see anything else in the chat. Oh, Gail, looks like
Okay,
you have a
so,
question. Yep.
yeah, I mean, a lot of good points being raised. The one thing that I'm a volunteer there. I participate in programs there. I'm also on the board of the Friends of the Cultural Arts Center, so I'm familiar with art programming there. The difference between the Cultural Arts Center and whatever this is, the Cultural Arts Center is about art. I mean, creating art. There's a lot of classes focused on gallery space and things like that. Whereas the senior center was more focused on community and gathering and socialization. And yeah, by the way, they made some pretty things as well. Nice, pretty things. Don't get me wrong. There's some talented people there. But the focus was around community. So, for example, when you walked into the Martin Janus Center, yeah, there was a little reception area, but when you walked in there, you walked into an open space. When you came in the back door, there were people sitting around, socializing and hanging out. If you walk into some of these other CRPD buildings, you walk into the front door and what do you see? A reception desk and a hallway. That's true with the Schiller building. It's true with the Whetstone building.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
I know exactly what you mean.
the nice part about the Janus Center was there was nice open space that people could hang out. I mean, they even set up ping pong tables every now and then in that big space. Or you could tear it down and have a banquet, a little dinner banquet with entertainment in that big space. So it was kind of a multiple use space, but at the same time, you know, it created a place for community. And I think having that social aspect is as important as the creative part. And I know there's this whole focus on creative campus, but it's, people come there to be part of a group, to interact with other people. They don't just come there to take classes. You can do that anywhere you want, but it's the friends and the colleagues and the camaraderie with the people that's important. That's probably more important at the Janus Center or senior centers than it is at the Culture Arts Center. Culture Arts Center, you get some really good instruction, very talented instruction, but that's the focus, is the instruction and the teaching.
Yeah, and Gail, this is something we've heard from Jeffrey. So we understand that we've actually added some square footage to the programming. It's unassigned square footage because we're gonna work with Jeffrey and the design team to create that special soft space, right? It could be multimodal. It could have different activities, maybe during different periods of time during the day, or it could just be a kind of a breakout area. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We find that that's one of the most important features in modern design, is to have that flow, for lack of a better word, and that sense of gathering. I would encourage you to go visit, what's our latest project, Jim?
Linden?
Linden, right? Take a look at what Linden's done. It's created a very special place. We've actually, Howard, if I remember right, we reused some of the stones to create a fireplace. So there's a very soft communal area as part of that project. I suspect that the design team in Rec and Parks is interested in duplicating that based on the success that we're seeing on that project.
Yeah, and Carla, you're absolutely right. And I'm going to build on that just a little bit. The individual on the Galaxy tab made a comment about the Linden Center not having programming for seniors. The Linden Center has a dedicated space for seniors. You are correct. The programming is not there yet. That's a brand new building. They're growing into it right now. That, you know, the program, that was one where we built it and the programming is coming. This one, you know, we're working really hard to identify the programming, and then we will build the building for it. So the approach is a little different. But, you know, Gail, the feedback that you're giving us is just so valuable. You know, that's why we have these public meetings. So we are just getting started. So we're looking really forward to talking to you and your colleagues and the community more about these types of issues, because we want to get it right.
Absolutely. It looked like we had a question in the chat about the lunch program and if they intend to have that included in the new space.
I thought so, guys. I could be mistaken. I thought that lunch and meals was something that we were thinking very hard about. Maybe even a culinary arts program wasn't in the survey, but it was in the conversation. But yes, we do want to keep the lunch programs.
I think we're, talking about keeping lunch programs and making sure that we have flexible space to have people have that. I don't think we have made a decision of how big the kitchen would be if there would be any culinary arts classes, but to have a warming kitchen and make sure that we can serve food is something that we're still exploring and something we've talked a lot about, yes.
But I think the warming kitchen is that is a total like 10-step backwards. I mean, the Janus Center had hot meals prepared, fresh hot meals with donated vegetables and things like that, or they went out and bought stuff. But you know, that was the unique thing at the Janus Center, was that people could have a nice hot meal, not a meal in a box at a very affordable price. And that was the primary meal for many of the constituents that would be hanging out there during the daytime. So I think having a nice commercial kitchen available, because one of the other programs we were trying to push and trying to figure out how we could get funded was a nutrition class, cooking class for seniors, cooking for one, and how can you develop more nutritious cooking for seniors as we're getting older. We need to kind of adjust our diet based on our medical issues. Are there things that we can do better in that space? And having a nice commercial kitchen with large enough space could be kind of a neat thing that for future programming. That was an idea that we've been tossing around wanting to do.
Let's keep talking about it, because again, no decision's is final yet. But a commercial kitchen, and to what extent what that kitchen can deliver, this is a detail we need to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the first step in the process, right? We're hearing from the community, and the input from you guys is important. All we have at this point is some assumptions based on some general programming and some general square footage. So when the design team's engaged, then we'll really start hammering through those points and exploring those options. I mean, if it's important to the community, it's certainly important to us.
Absolutely. Looks like we have another question from Carol here. I think you should be able to unmute.
Yes, I just have two questions. First of all, how many people are attending this meeting on the telephone lines and on Zoom?
We have 30 people on the meeting today.
Is that telephone and Zoom?
Yes, that's anyone who's connected to the meeting right now.
Okay, I think you could possibly get more people if you did it more in person. I know that COVID's been a problem, and they just now, loosen the rules for masking and, in-person things. But, a lot of seniors, the 30 of us that are on here are more equipped, let's say, than some of the older ones that didn't grow up with computers or, have access to iPhones and all, Wi-Fi and all that stuff. And maybe some kind of even afford it. So I think it's important that you not only announce the meetings in another way besides computer ways, but if you can have the next meeting or 2 or 3 or whatever we're going to have in the future in person, it might bring in more people.
Carol, I'm going to go right to the source here. So I'm going to look at you as our expert. What if we're not doing a media push or a digital push for the meetings? What do you think the best way is to get these out to the seniors? Where are they going to see it?
Well, just notify the different. I think there's 29 community centers, so
okay.
Get the word out to them through the like Doreen is our Thompson leader. And get the word out that way.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, I know we're definitely going to have
maybe they have special little things that you can see at the libraries and different venues. They're all over. You just have to maybe get the word out a little better.
Right.
Okay.
So
that's very helpful.
Yeah, and if I can add, Carol, you're only about 1,000,000% correct when you say that, right? In the future, I expect our public meetings to not only be in person, but to also be virtual, to help those maybe with mobility issues. Or to put this, they're recorded and it's going to go up on the website so anybody can watch it anytime later. This virtual platform, I think we're going to reach more people with it. And when we start having the in-person meetings again, I think you're correct. We're going to reach even more yet. So expect to see both in the future.
Thank you. That would be good.
Yeah, and Carol, do us a favor, actually, all of you, if you could get the word out. Obviously, we're counting on everyone's input. So be a steward to this project and the community and reach out to your friends and, you know, pass along the website or however you think is best to relay that information.
Yeah. Yeah, we tried to get the word out to the participants at Martin Janus. So
And
thank you.
Maura, remind me, we provided posters at most rec centers, did we not?
So there were, I believe, 8 or 9 posters that went out. So it hit some of the rec centers, but I'm sure, I mean, when we do the next meeting, we can definitely do more than that. It's definitely an option. So we try to infiltrate that way a little bit, but we can certainly always do more. So that's great insight, Carol. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ellen, it looked like you were reading Jim's mind. So I think the answer is yes, they will be both in person and virtually in the future. Great comment about the public service announcement, definitely noted. And Ken had a question if the auditorium at Martin Janus will be available on a temporary basis.
I forget, Mr. Smith, when our lease with the state runs out on that building. Let me get back to you on that. I don't believe that it is because of the stormwater damage inside of the building and the mold and all of that. It's just not healthy. But I know we're looking at the Center of Performing Arts temporarily for that as well. So I don't have an answer for that. Let me get back to you on that.
Any other questions or comments? I think we have everything in the chat right now. Any other questions, thoughts before we wrap up here this evening and let you all get back to your evening? All right, well, if that's everything, thank you very much. I'm going to pass it to Rachel here for just 1 second to close up and go ahead and share her information so you're able to connect with her directly. So 1 second, let me pull it up on the screen so you will be able to see her contact information. And I will go ahead and throw it to Rachel to close us out here. Oh, can you see her contact information? That's the real question. Okay, 1 second here. Okay, there we go.
Well, thank you, Maura. And once again, thank you everyone who joined tonight. We really appreciated hearing from you and getting your comments and feedback about the potential programming we have for the site. We're really excited about getting into design of this programming. We still are trying to figure out all of our owner program requirements, which are the community requirements. I mean, we're doing this for you. We're doing this for the community. We definitely will want to have more conversations in person and keep on giving you feedback of where we are in this design phase. So yes, please look for, however you found our information, to look for more information, but we'll continue to look for other avenues that we can get out information and get more people engaged. We want this to be a space that the whole community can be proud of, enjoy, and feel comfortable being creative and getting with their other community members in here. But thank you so much for coming tonight. We look forward to continuing this conversation in the future.
And I think we had, oh, no other question. Okay. Well, like Rachel said, thank you all very much. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And I know this is just the beginning of the conversation. So I think that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please take care, everyone.